make the buses wait. We're going to be met by the buses near the guest house. So everybody 7 o'clock sharp down at the guest house. We will proceed to the Jagannath temple where Guru Maharaj will give a class. And after the class at the Jagannath temple, we will have prasadam, breakfast prasadam at the Jagannath temple. From there, we will proceed to Mahakaleshwar temple, from there to Ramghat, and from there to Sandipani Muni's ashram. And eventually we'll return back here, just before 1 o'clock, to have lunch prasadam over here. And then afterwards, the 4 o'clock program tomorrow afternoon will continue as normal. Is that completely clear? Okay, Hari Bol. Now, once again, a reminder, please check your phones. You might think that you've switched them off, but despite announcement in 3 different languages this morning, we still had a phone go off. So please check your phones again, make sure they're off. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So, tomorrow, you're all going to go for parikrama of Avanti Nagari. This Avanti or Ujjaini, the original name of this place is Avanti. And this place is considered to be one of the 7 holy places of India. This is the place where Krishna and Balaram came to study in the ashram of Sandipani Muni. Krishna Balaram came here to study. And Krishna came once again to win the hands of the princess of Avanti. And her name was Mitravinda. So Krishna, this is also Krishna's Krishna's in-laws' house. There are 7 places which are identified as the places of Lord Shiva. They are called Jyotirlingas. And this is one of the Jyotirlingas of Lord Shiva. This place is the temple of Mahakal. Maha means great and Kal means time. The manifestation of the Lord is in the form of time, and that manifestation of time is Lord Shiva. So, here Lord Shiva is present in the form of time. And this is the place where there are 4 places in the world where Kumbh Mela takes place. Kumbh Mela takes place in the 4 places where 4 drops of nectar fell during the time of churning of the milk ocean. Today I'll briefly discuss about that also. So this is the place where nectar fell, and as a result of that, this festival, the spiritual festivity called Kumbh Mela takes place. Those 4 places are Ujjain is one, Nasik, Haridwar, and Prayag, Allahabad. So, year 2016 will be the Kumbh Mela here. So it will be a big festival where they are expecting at least 50 million people to come. And you know something? The Madhya Pradesh government wants ISKCON to be the ambassador for Kumbh Mela to the world. They want ISKCON to do the representation and publicity of Kumbh Mela. And they requested Ambarish Prabhu Alfred Ford to be the ambassador. And Ambarish Prabhu agreed. So that's why this parikrama is, I'm sure you'll like it very much. And then we'll go to Jagannath Temple. Jagannath Temple is just about 7 minutes drive from here, where we have a setup called Midday Meal Program, ISKCON Food Relief Foundation program. And here we are feeding only 25,000 students. Actually, the number has dropped. And we can increase, but we are deliberately not increasing. The number dropped to 21,000. And in Madhya Pradesh, they eat chapati. So it was a big challenge. Like, we had to feed the boys and girls in schools with chapatis. And each student gets 3 chapatis. So when we started for 25,000 children, so that means we had to bake 75,000 chapatis a day. And we met that challenge. We have a machine that makes 10,000 chapatis per hour. So that is the place, and there we also set up a Jagannath temple. Because this place also has a relevance with Lord Jagannath. I forgot to mention that. King Indradumna, for whom Lord appeared as Jagannath, this used to be the capital of King Indradumna. So that's why we decided to bring Jagannath back here. So we have a Jagannath temple there. Many of you may have seen the temple, and here we are distributing food, and along with that there is a Jagannath temple. So tomorrow's morning class, Bhagavatam class, will be there, and it seems tomorrow there won't be any morning session, 11 to 1 session, right? Okay. So tomorrow there won't be any morning session, 11 to 1 session won't be there, but we'll meet at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And I also want to present one thing. Amal Bhakta, come here. Amal Bhakta. Where is Prabhupada Murti? Oh, okay. Well, this Murti is very small, so you may not be able to see. This is Prabhupada Murti. How many of you have seen Prabhupada's Guru Parampara set? Okay, Guru Parampara set is 11-inch Prabhupada. But this is 5-inch Prabhupada. Many devotees told me that for their household altar, that altar is quite big. That Parampara is quite big. So I was requested to get small Prabhupada. And you can see this 5-inch Prabhupada, and we are going to make a Parampara also set of this Murti, so that every house can have either this Parampara set or that Parampara set. We'll place the Murti in the front on the table so that you can have a close look. And from a distance, how does Prabhupada look here? Very nice, yeah? Now you know who made this? This is Amal Bhakta. You can see he's an artist, very talented artist. That Guru Parampara also, the bigger one, Amal Bhakta actually made them. And it's beautiful, Prabhupada Murti. And he's also doing the casting. And Amal Bhakta takes care of the casting department, where we make Mainly we make Prabhupada murtis. But we can also make Gaur Nitai deities. We have the mold. We also have Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur also we have. And anyway, those are for big temples, big deities for big temples. And so Amal Bhakta is taking care of that department. Another department, as I said, nowhere in ISKCON they have this department. Because nowhere else in the world there is Amal Bhakta. Thank you, Amal Bhakta. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thakur. And we'll place that. Table everybody can have a close look of Srila Prabhupada. In the examining table, book table. Je na thake tahole kauke diye dao. Acha table ta ache to? Ha. Oi table rekhe dao. So, today is the third day, and tomorrow morning there is no class. So we are left with what? Tomorrow one session, that is 29th, 30th 2 sessions, and 31st 2 sessions. So that we are left with only 5 sessions. And 5 sessions, the last session will be a discussion session. We'll request different devotees to speak about their realizations of this seminar. So that means we are left with only 4 sessions. And I haven't even covered a fraction of Srimad Bhagavatam. So what should I do now? Okay, and mind you, Srila Prabhupada covered up to 9th chapter in about 30 volumes. And Prabhupada 9 cantos, Prabhupada's idea was to complete Srimad Bhagavatam with 60 volumes. 60 volumes. And out of that, 30 volumes would cover up to 9th canto. And other 30 volumes, Prabhupada wanted to describe the 10th canto. That means Prabhupada wanted to take 10 cantos, half the time for the 10th canto. So, like half of 9 cantos, and other half of Srimad Bhagavatam that Prabhupada was planning, 30 volumes. Other 30 volumes. So Prabhupada wanted to cover 10th canto with 30 volumes. And probably another few volumes to cover 11th and 12th cantos. So now we have already exhausted 6 sessions. And we didn't even cover only up to part of 5th canto. Anyway, so today I will go quickly through the other important chapters or other exciting stories. And then 4 days or 4 sessions I would like to discuss about the 10th canto, Krishna's pastimes. Should I keep these 4 sessions for Krishna's pastimes? Or should we carry on and then see how many time is left for? Okay, as I said, I'll quickly try to go this. Okay, now we are coming to Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and Prahlad Maharaj. So you all know that Joy and Vijay were cursed to become demons and fight with the Lord 3 times. So those Jai and Vijay came as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. They were the two sons of Diti and Kashyap. Kashyap is another Prajapati, and he was a progenitor. He married many wives, and out of them one was Diti and the other was Aditi. These Aditi's sons are the demigods. Indra, Chandra, Varun, etc. Agni, Surya, Agni, Jam. And so Diti became envious that Aditi's sons are so illustrious. So she approached her husband for children. But unfortunately, she approached him at a wrong time, in the evening, at the twilight, at the time when the ghosts and pisachas and hobgoblins roam around. An inauspicious time. So Kashyapa told that, look, this is not the right time for such activity. But she, being very driven by her lust, she forced him, or then Kashyap had to comply to her request, and he also warned her that you are going to give birth to some very, very inauspicious beings. And the result of that, 2 sons were born. And they were Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Right after their birth, they started to grow. And in a very short time, they became as tall as if they were reaching the sky. Extremely powerful and extremely uncontrolled, extremely violent. And they were just roaming around, challenging everyone, especially Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyaksha was going to places, challenging different demigods and others. So when he went to Varuna, in his kingdom called Bibhavari, when he reached the place called Bibhavari, and that is in the underwater kingdom of King Varuna, and he challenged him to fight. So Varuna told him that, look, I am no match for you. So fighting with me, you are not going to get any joy. You'll defeat me very easily. So there's no reason, no need for you to fight with me. So fight with somebody who is equally powerful to you. So he asked, tell me, who is equally powerful to me? Is there anyone who is as powerful as I am? He said, yes, there is someone. Who is that? Hari. Where is Hari? Hari is everywhere, but it's difficult to find him. But if you try hard enough, then you may be able to see him. You may be fortunate enough to see him. So then Hiranyaksha saw that one very strange being that looks like a boar but had a gigantic form, and he was lifting the earth from the lower region of the universe. When Hiranyaksha, one of the hobbies of Hiranyaksha was to collect gold. His eyes was always looking for gold. Therefore his name is Hiranna, means gold, Aksha means eyes. So he's always looking for gold, and he collected all the gold. And as a result of that, the earth became devoid of gold. And gold actually maintains the balance for the earth to remain in the orbit. So when all the gold was taken out of the earth lost its ability to stay in the orbit and fell into the lower region. So there was a need for rescuing the earth. Therefore the Lord appeared as Varahadev, or a transcendental boar, and he picked up the earth from the nether region, and when he was lifting the earth, Hiranyaksha saw him. So there is Jayadev, Kavi, wrote a very beautiful description of Varahadev rescuing the earth. Bashoti dashana shikhare dharani tabo lagna shoshini kolonko kaleva nimagna keshava dhrita shukara rupa jai jagadisha hare. Bashoti dashana shikhare dharani tabo lagna. Dharani is another name of earth. Earth was lying on your tusks, and seeing that earth was actually fallen into the nether region, lower region, therefore earth became dirty, so he picked up. The transcendental body of the Lord appeared to be blemished with with earth on his tusk, just as the moon with her marks on it. Shoshini meaning Shoshini Kolonko Kaleva Nimagna. Just as if the Shoshini was lying on the moon, the blemish on the moon. So Varahadev was lifting the earth planet, and he placed the earth planet on the orbit. So earth was rescued. But Hiranyaksha became very upset. How do you dare to do it without my permission? So he challenged him to fight. He thought it was just a boar, and he can very easily defeat that. But the fight continued for a long, long time, and nothing was happening. No one is able to defeat anyone. Both of them are fighting. And Hiranyaksha had a mess in his hand. He was fighting with that. Varahadev also got a mess. And he was fighting with that, like probably he was holding it with his hoof. Like a boar has only the split hoof. So with that he was fighting. But the Lord can do anything. And at one point, and at that time the demigods were watching from the heaven this fight between Lord Varahadev and Hiranyaksha. And at one time, due to Hiranyaksha's striking, being hit, his mess, Lord's mess, fell out of his hand. And this fight was taking place in the space, and mess just slipped out of his hand and fell. And he was standing there as if now he is exposed to the attack. So demigods cried out, "My Lord, please do something. Our life air is almost in our throat. It's about to leave our body." So we had enough excitement. So please do something. So then Varahadev just touched him with his hoof or hand. And Hiranyaksha's body started rolling down, down, down. Dead. When Hiranyakashipu got to know about that, he was very, very upset. He called his associates, all the terrible demons, and said, Hari, who is the root of our enemies, the demigods, killed my brother. So kill all the demigods, kill all the people, those who are supporters of demigods and Hari. Burn all the places where they worship the demigods and their fountainhead, Hari. And I am going to kill Hari to take revenge. With my trident, I'll kill him, and with his blood, I'll perform the funeral rites, the last rite of my brother to satisfy his soul. Then he went to his family members. His mother, Diti, was very, very heartbroken due to the loss of her son, and all the other members were lamenting. Now this is also another very nice aspect of these demons. Although they are demons, but we see that what kind of spiritual knowledge they had. He consoled his mother. Mother, don't worry. After all, the soul is immortal. It is due to the Maya, one assumes the form. And so this is we can see even at that time, this Mayavad philosophy was there. But the living entity is eternal. The body changes. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi. The body that is born is bound to die, is susceptible to old age, and so forth. And in this way, he consoled his mother. And then he told a beautiful story. There was a king called Suyagya in the province called, in a country called Ushinar. And in a battle, he lost his life. So all his wives surrounding his body, they were lamenting, they were crying. And at that time, Jamraj assumed the form of a little boy, came to them and asked them, why are you crying? And the queen said, because our husband died. Oh, died? What does it mean? Well, our husband left. Why do you say he left? He's there. I can see that he's lying there. Then they said, well, that's his body, but he left. Mind you, Hiranyakashipu is telling this story. He left. So who left then? His body is lying there. You said that he left. Well, that's the soul that kept the body alive left. Oh, so did you ever see him? Then it occurred to the queens that we didn't know the real person. So the person who left, we never really got to know him. So this is how Jamraj taught them this lesson. That you are crying for somebody whom you don't even know. All the relationships that you developed is simply based on that body. You know the body, but the body was changing. That's not the real person. The body is lying there. Why are you crying? The person who left you don't even know. So then Hiranyakashipu considered that he'll have to take revenge. And in order to take revenge, he'll have to become more powerful than this person. So the way to take revenge is by becoming immortal. This person, Hari, is so powerful that he killed my brother, who was equally powerful as I am. But now he is gone. He is dead. It's been killed by him. So if I will kill Hari, but before killing them, before going to fight with them, I have to acquire enough strength. I have to become stronger than him. That is, I have to become immortal. Then he won't be able to defeat me. So Hiranyakashipu then left for Mandar mountain. And on the top, he went on top of the Mandar mountain, stood there on one leg, practically standing on the toe, with his hands raised upwards, not moving, not taking food, not eating anything, not sleeping, just stood there like that. And days went by, months went by, years went by. Motionless, he was standing there. And in the meantime, the ants came and they got a good supply of food. So they started to eat the body of Hiranyakashipu. They ate his skin, they ate his flesh. Years went by, so they started to eat. Then they went inside his body, started to eat his stomach, lungs, heart, nerves, brains, everything was eaten up. Only the skeleton was standing. Such terrible austerity. And his heart is gone, eaten up. So his life air was preserved within his bone marrow. Such severe austerity created so much heat that heat reached the heavenly planets, upper planetary system. The residents there couldn't stay there anymore because it was so hot. So they approached the Lord. They approached Brahma. And do something, like we can't, it's unbearable, we can't stay here anymore. So then Brahma said, okay, I'll go. I can see it's Hiranyakashipu who is performing austerities. So Brahma then sprinkled some water on his body from his kamandalu, from his water pot. And immediately Hiranyakashipu's body became restored. His body became, he assumed a beautiful body. And due to this austerity, this body became so strong that even thunderbolt couldn't do anything to this body. So Brahma asked, okay, Hiranyakashipu, what's the matter? Why are you performing such austerities? He said, I want to be immortal. Brahma said, I can't give you that boon, because even I am not immortal, so how can I give it to you? So Hiranyakashipu thought that Brahma is trying to trick him, lying him in this way. So he said, when Brahma refused to give him immortality, then Hiranyakashipu asked, okay, then give me the boon that no man, animal, Rakshasa, Daitas, Danavas, serpent, he named everything, won't be able to kill me. Brahma said, fine. Tathastu, granted. Give me the boon that I won't be killed by any weapon. Granted. Give me the boon that I won't be killed on the space or land or water. Granted. Give me the boon that I won't be killed inside the room, inside the house or outside the house. Granted. Give me the boon that I won't be killed during the day or at night. Granted. So now Hiranyakashipu felt that he has become immortal. No weapon can kill him, no man can kill him, no animal, no Drakshasa, Danava, Daitya can kill him. He won't be killed in the space or on the ground. He won't be killed during the day or at night. He won't be killed by any weapon. And Hiranyakashipu started to terrorize the whole world. In the meantime, when Hiranyakashipu left to perform austerities, the demigods attacked his kingdom. And at that time, his wife, Kayadhu, was pregnant. So they arrested Kayadhu and they were taking her to their abode in the heavenly planet, so that when the child would be born, they would kill the child. So on the way, Narad Muni confronted them. Said, why are you tormenting a woman? You are so honorable person. Torturing a woman is not befitting a gentleman. So they said, no, we are taking, this is Hiranyakashipu's wife, and we are taking, he is pregnant, and when the child is born, we would kill him because the demon's son will become another demon. Then Narad Muni said, no. The child that is in the womb of this lady is a great devotee. So there is nothing to fear from him. So then the demigods left Kayadhu. So Kayadhu had no place to go. So Narad Muni took Kayadhu to his ashram. And in his ashram, he also blessed Kayadhu that until your wife comes back, the child will not be born. Because people may talk if the child is born in his ashram, who is the father, etc. So he gave the benediction that the child won't be born until Hiranyakashipu came back. And every day Narad Muni used to instruct Kayadhu on the topic of Krishna consciousness. And Prahlad, sitting in his mother's womb, used to listen to all those instructions. And that is how, even in his mother's, when he was in his mother's womb, he received the transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Then when Hiranyakashipu came back, Narad Muni returned his wife back to him, and in course of time the child was born, and this child is Prahlad. Prahlad, mind you, he became a devotee even when he was in his mother's womb. So when he was 5 years old, 6 years old, he was sent to his guru's ashram. The gurus are also demoniac gurus. They are the sons of Shukracharya, Shanda and Amarka. And they gave all the advice on material topics: physics, chemistry, mathematics, political science, economics, and they're learning all demoniac subject. But when during the off time, when they are supposed to play, Prahlad used to teach his boys how to chant the holy name of the Lord and sing and dance. So this is how Prahlad was spending his time in his Guru's ashram. Then at one time when he went home, his father asked him, Prahlad, so how do you like your Guru's ashram? Oh, it's very nice. I have so many friends there. Prahlad, so what's the most important thing that you learned in your Guru's ashram? Daddy. The most important thing I learned is that Krishna, Hari, is the Supreme Personality of God. What? This is what you learned in your Guru's ashram? That Hari is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not me? My enemy has become your worshipable Lord? And he said that, and he should be worshipped. He has become your worshipable Lord. So he called Shanda and Amarka. Is this what you're teaching? And Hiranyakashipu is the king of the demons. So you can well imagine what his anger could mean. So they were trembling like a leaf in storm. And they said, no sir, we never taught them any of these things. We tried to teach them physics, chemistry, mathematics, economics and politics. Then why did they learn this? We don't know. We never really taught them these subjects, this topic. So it seems that in disguise these demigods are coming and vitiating the mind of my child. So Hiranyakashipu made arrangements to guard the ashram so that nobody, even a bird, cannot enter there. So then Hiranyakashipu, after some time, again called Prahlad and asked, so Prahlad, what's the most important thing that you have learned? I learned that Hari is the supreme creator, he is the supreme maintainer. Prahlad Hiranyakashipu couldn't tolerate that. He threw the child from his lap and called their guru again and said, look, you better teach my son properly, otherwise he will be in trouble. So again they took him to the ashram and started to teach him all the important subjects to exploit this material nature. And so then again Hiranyakashipu called Prahlad. Prahlad, tell me now, my little boy, be very careful what you tell me this time. Just tell me, what's the important thing? Serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead and chanting His holy name is the ultimate goal of life. This was enough for Hiranyakashipu. He threw the child out of his lap and he called his bodyguards to kill him. Being ordered like that, they immediately pulled out their weapons and attacked him. Their weapons couldn't do anything to Prahlad. They just stood there. Nothing happened, not even a scratch. These soldiers are so powerful that they could fight with the demigods. Their weapons were strong, advanced enough to kill the demigods. But to Prahlad, they couldn't even scratch his body. Hiranyakashipu was surprised. But at the same time, he thought, after all, he's my son. So he said, throw him in the pit of the snakes. Mind you, this is not happening here. It's happening in the abode of the Daitas, in the heavenly planets actually. And those snakes there are not small cobras. They are 10-headed, 50-headed, 100-headed serpents. So threw him on that pit. And the snakes kept on biting, but nothing happened. Then the snakes got exhausted, and they appealed to Hiranyakashipu. My lord, our fangs are broken. Our bags, poison bags are empty. I poured out all the venom that we had, but nothing is happening to the child. Okay, now he has been taken out. Okay, light a fire, huge, like a mountainous piling of logs, and it was set in fire, and Prahlad was put in there. The fire burnt, got extinguished, Prahlad is sitting there. Nothing happened. On the other hand, Prahlad felt as if the touch of the flames of the fire was like the soothing, cool touch of the lotus petals. Okay, this also didn't work. So throw him from top of the mountain. So Prahlad was taken. Hiranyakashipu was standing there to see that they are executing the mission properly. From top of the Sumeru mountain, Prahlad was dropped. Nothing happened. Midway, Krishna caught him, placed him on the ground. Okay, now bury him in the ocean and put all kinds of boulders, mountain peaks, to bury him underwater, that he cannot come out from. So that was arranged. So Prahlad was thrown into the ocean, and then they started to drop all these big boulders and mountain peaks. I think that is how the Table Mountain came. The peak is gone. And when Hiranyakashipu thought that, well, finally, the kulangar, the fire that is going to burn the whole family, has been taken care of. But then all of a sudden he saw that Prahlad moved all those big boulders at ease, and he came out of that water. So again Prahlad was brought to the court of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu asked, "Tell me, where are you getting all this strength from?" I am getting all the strength from where everybody gets his strength, even you. From Hari I am getting. He is the one who is the supreme controller. And whatever is happening to me is due to his divine arrangement. So Prahlad, Hiranyakashipu asked, "Where is your Hari?" He's everywhere, I told you. Is he in this pillar? Yes, he's in this pillar also. Okay, let me go and see. He hit the pillar, huge pillar in the palace. The pillar broke with his blow. And then a strange creature appeared from that. His head was like that of a lion, and his body was like that of a man. Hiranyakashipu never seen anything like that. But he realized that this is his enemy. So he pulled out his sword and tried to attack him. And he also resisted that attack. Both of them started to fight. And the fight went on for a long, long time. Now it was almost, the day is about to turn into night. Then the Lord, Narsingadev, picked Hiranyakashipu, placed him on his lap, sat on the doorstep, and with his nails he tore open his abdomen, pulled out his intestine along with the heart, wrapped that intestine around his neck, and he killed him. See, Hiranyakashipu got the boon that he won't be killed by any man or animal or demigod or Danava, Daitya. Therefore, the Lord assumed a form that is neither a man nor an animal. Half lion, half man. He was not to be killed he was not to be killed in the space or on the land. He placed him on his lap, which is neither the space nor the land. He was not to be killed during the inside the room or outside the room. He sat on the doorstep, which is neither the inside the room, outside the room. And at a time when the day is just turning into night, when it is neither day nor night. He was not to be killed by any weapon, so he used his nails to tear open his abdomen. As we always sing, Tabo karo kamalo vare, nakham, nails, adbhuta shringam, dalita hiranyakashipu, tanu bhringam. Hiranyakashipu's body that was even stronger, as strong, so strong that even thunder couldn't do anything to that body. But with your nails, you tore open the body just like a child tears open a wasp. A wasp body is so soft. So, to him, Hiranyakashipu's body was like the body of a wasp. Bhringam. Tanu bhringam, body of a wasp. Keshava dhrita narahari rupa. Keshava, Krishna, has assumed the form of Nara Hari. Nara means man and Hari means lion. Keshava dhrita narahari rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hari. So in this way, he took care of Hiranyakashipu. Now the question arises, why did he wrap the intestine of Hiranyakashipu around his neck as if it's a garland? He treated it as a garland. Why? Because the soul of Prahlad Maharaj travelled through the intestine. The soul actually travels through the intestine and goes into the semen of the Father. So that is why to the Lord this intestine of Hiranyakashipu was like a garland. So this is how the Lord glorifies His devotees. This is how the Lord takes care of His devotees. Okay, let me see. I thought I'll tell quite a few stories today, but what to do once I start? I can't make it short. Even though I try to make it short, but still it takes so much time to tell. Okay, I'll tell one story very shortly, very quickly. There was an elephant, king of the elephants. He went to the ocean, went to the lake to sport with his wives. And when he was sporting in the water with his wives, she-elephants, then a crocodile came and caught him by his leg. And they started to fight for a long, long time. And finally, the crocodile, which is the creature of the water, and although the elephant is very strong, but it's at a wrong place. Elephant is a creature of the land, and he is in what the fight is taking place in the water. So very soon he was defeated. And when he was about to leave his body, the elephant realized, now the time has come for me to leave my body. So he picked up a lotus that was in the water, and he offered the lotus at the feet of the Lord, and he prayed to him, my Lord, now that I am leaving my body, please give me your shelter. So immediately the Lord came, and with his disc, chakra, he cut the head of the crocodile. And in this way, he rescued Gajendra. So this story is known as Gajendra Mokshan. At that point, Parikshit Maharaj asked that how come this elephant actually even remembered the Lord in spite of being in an elephant body. So he was told that this elephant in his previous life was a king called Indradumna. And after giving up his household life, he went to the forest to perform austerities in Banaprastha life. So he was so absorbed in meditating on the lotus feet, that when Agastya Muni came, and he did not get up to show respect to him. So Agastya Muni actually cursed him, that your intelligence is gross as an elephant's, so you become an elephant. That is why he became an elephant, but although he was in an elephant body, but he could remember his past life. He could remember the Lord and his relationship with the Lord, and that's how in this life he recalled about his relationship. So this is actually a real story, real happening. But Surdas, one great poet, he actually took this story to tell us a very important, give us a very important lesson. So he actually put it as an allegory that this elephant is a living entity. He is from the land. So the living entity is from the spiritual world. He comes to the material nature to sport, to play around, to enjoy. But in this material nature, which has been compared to a lake or a big lake of pool of water, there is the crocodile. The crocodile is death. As soon one comes to the material nature, death immediately grabs him. And the struggle continues. The fight goes on. Death is trying to overpower the living entity, and the living entity is struggling against death. So this way, the thing continues throughout the day. The day has 4 prahars. 12 hours consist of 4 prahars. Each prahar is of 3 hours. And then at the end, the fourth stage of life, 21st 25 years, second 25 years, third 25 years, fourth 25 years. Now he cannot fight anymore. Life is coming to an end. And so, at that time, the crocodile overpowers the living entity. And at that time, if the living entity remembers Krishna, then Krishna comes. And cutting the neck of the crocodile, Death, he rescues his devotee. Another wonderful lesson we learn. So Surdasa's song goes like He Govinda, He Gopal, Rakha Sharana, Avato Jivana Hari. Neera Pivana, that's actually the beginning. Neera Pivana He to Gayo, Sindhu ke kinare. Sindhu beach basat graha, Charana dhari pajhari. Neera Pivana, in order to drink water, the elephant went to the lake. And in the lake, there was a crocodile. And the crocodile grabbed him by his foot, by his leg. And Neera Pivana he to gayo Sindhu ke kinare, Sindhu beach basata graha. Graha means a crocodile. Charana dhari pajhari. Char prahara juddha bhayo. For 4 prahars, the fight continued. Le gayo majidhari. And after that, the crocodile dragged the elephant into the middle of the lake. Le gayo majidhare, naak kana dubana lage. Now the elephant is drowning, drinking water through his nose and ears. Krishna ko pukare. At that time he calls out to Krishna. Dwarka se chale Gopal, Garura ke bichhare, Chakra se graho ko mari, Gajaraj ko udhare. At the time Krishna was in Dwarka, so from Dwarka he came with riding on Garura. And with his chakra, he cut the head of the crocodile and rescued Gajendra, the king of elephant. Sur kahe shyam suno, sharanai tohare, ab hamare par karo he, Nand ke dulhare. Surdas is saying, Hey Shyam, Krishna, Sharanai tohare, now I am remembering you. Just the way you rescued this Gajendra, please rescue me also. Sur kahe shyam suno, sharanai tohare, ab hamare par karo he, Nand ke dulhare. Hey son of Nanda Maharaj, please rescue me also just the way you rescued Gajendra. So didn't we learn another wonderful lesson? What should we do at the time of death? Remember Krishna, and he'll positively rescue us. Okay, another anecdote, as I told you, that I will tell about the churning of the milk ocean and getting the nectar. So, the consideration was how to attain immortality. So Lord advised the demigods that churn the milk ocean. Get all the herbs, medicinal herbs, from the earth planet and put them in the milk ocean and make Mandar mountain the churning rod, make King Bashuki the rope for churning. And so you churn the ocean. Now you won't be able to do it yourselves. So take the help of the demons. Make truce with them and tell them that we'll churn out the nectar and we'll share it. So Indra then went to Bali Maharaj, the king of the demons, and proposed. Bali Maharaj said, okay, fine. And so he got the demons to also take part in that. But when they went there, Bashuki's head and tail, like one side was Bashuki's tail, the other side was Bashuki's head. So the consideration was, who will take the head? The demon said, the head is the prestigious part, so we'll take the head. So that is what happens when people become proud. They end up making the wrong choice. So they just took the head side of Vasuki, and the demigods got the tail part of the Vasuki, and they started churning. Did you ever see how churning is done? In the modern world, you have a blender and mixer. So you don't use this churning device. A rod, and they put the rope around it, and then they pull it. When they pull it, then the rod rotates, and that's what makes it churn the milk or yogurt. So that is how they started to churn. Now, because of this friction, because of this tension and exhaustion, from Bashuki's mouth, the poison started to come out, hot flame. And the demons were exhausted, and they realized, oh, what a mistake we made. Better would have been to give this part to the demons, to the demigods. Or before that, something happened. Demons and demigods collectively uprooted the Mandar mountain. Now mind you, Mandar mountain is not in this planet. And it is, I don't know how many times, maybe 100 times higher than Himalayas. So they carried the Mandar mountain with great difficulty, brought it to the milk ocean. And as they put it, the mountain sank. So now they're completely frustrated. What shall I do? Like, we brought the mountain with so much trouble, and now the mountain sank in the milk ocean. So they started to pray to the Lord. Then the Lord said, okay, I will hold this mountain on my back, and the Lord became a tortoise. That is the Kurma avatar. And so he held the mountain, and then they started to churn the milk ocean with the mountain. First, the poison came out, called halahal. A huge amount of poison. And that poison was going to destroy everything. So the Lord asked Lord Shiva to drink that poison. Lord Shiva said, fine. So he went and took the poison in his palm, just drank it. But he drank it, but he held it on his neck. And as a result of that, his neck became blue. Therefore, another name of Lord Shiva is Nilakantha, blue-necked one. So this is how Lord Shiva rescued this planet from being destroyed due to the poison that came out from churning of the milk ocean. Then the nectar came. Then various other things came. Airavat came, the elephant that Indra took. Then Uchchaishrava, horse came. And this was something that demons took, something that came out that the demigods took. And then Lakshmi Devi came. Therefore, another name of Lakshmi Devi is Sindhu Suta. Sindhu Suta, the daughter of ocean, Sindhu, because she came out of milk ocean. Then finally Dhanvantari came, the incarnation of the Lord, carrying the pot of nectar. He handed it, and at that time the demons and demigods started to fight. Demons had that agenda. Both the demigods and demons. Somehow we'll get it together, but ultimately we'll get it. And when they were struggling over that pot of nectar, then a few drops of nectar fell on this planet in 4 different places. And one of those places where you are sitting now. And then there was 3 other places where they fell. As I mentioned, Prayag, Allahabad, Haridwar and Nasik. And in these 4 places, this Kumbh Mela takes place. Kumbh means pot. And this is a celebration of the pot of nectar. At this time, this nectar, this place, they're all the bank of the rivers, and that river water at the time turns into nectar. That's why there is this consideration of taking bath. At that time, at that auspicious time, to take bath to attain immortality. Amrit. People come from all over the world. And not only from different places in India, they come even from the higher regions of the mountains where there are saintly people who are practicing their spiritual life high up in the mountains, and they don't come. They come also to this. So many thousands of saintly people you see at that time, sadhus you see at that time. They are this whole place become filled with. All are just eager to take bath. When Prabhupada was there in Kumbh Mela, he didn't want to go to take bath. He said, "You bring some water in the bucket." And Prabhupada just took a bath in that bucket. Prabhupada didn't pay much heed to all these activities. Why not? Because we are already plunged in an ocean of nectar. Anandambhuti vardhanam, purnamrita shvadanam. So we don't have to worry about this taking bath. That happens only once in a while. Let them go for that nectar. We have the real nectar. The real nectar of the holy name of the Lord. So this is how the churning of the milk ocean took place. What took place between the demigods and demon. And when the demons realized that they have become deceived, then they launched an attack on the demigods. But they got defeated. The demigods became so powerful. So Bali Maharaj came, and he was very much heartbroken that they have been deceived They took the struggle, they took the trouble of churning the milk ocean. They made the equal trouble. And now the demigods had taken the nectar. I didn't go to that part. Like how the demigods got the nectar. Anyway, you all know that, yeah? Is there any need to tell you all? Should I tell you? Haribol means yes or no. So, when they were struggling, so at that time, the Lord came, assuming his Mohini Murti, the most enchanting female form. And the demons, who are naturally very lusty, they just forgot everything. They just kept on looking at her. And she took advantage, the Lord took advantage of that, and he said, give me the pot. Don't fight among yourselves. Be good boys. The demon said, fine. Take. Now you stand on line. Now you sit on line. I'll distribute it. And the demigod sat on one line and the demon sat on the other line. And seeing that Mohini Murti of the Lord, the demons forgot about the nectar. They just kept on looking at her with their mouth wide open and eyes popping out of the... And he started to pour the nectar to the demigods. And at that time, Rahu understood what was going on. So he quickly changed side and sat on the demigod side. And Mohini already poured the thing to nectar in his glass, and he just about to drank. And at that time, sun and moon recognized. And he said, hey, he's a demon. So, the Lord released his Sudarshan Chakra and cut his neck, cut his head. So but by the time he already took the nectar, so his body became immortal. Although it is just half, just the head severed from the body, the Rahu became immortal. And he developed an animosity towards sun and moon because they reported. That is why at certain time he swallows them. That is the eclipse. Rahu is eating up sun and moon, but because he eats and then it comes out through his neck. So, and then finally, by serving the demigods, the pot became finished. He said, the demon, I'm sorry. No more nectar left. And they realized that they have been tricked by Narayan, who is always favoring the demigods. So, Bali attacked, but he was defeated. Now the demigods became so powerful. So, Sukracharya told Bali, you perform a sacrifice called Vishwajit Yajna. And with that, performing that Yajna, you'll become very powerful, then you can launch an attack on the demigods. And under the supervision of Sukracharya, this Vishwajit Yajna was performed, and as a result of that, the demons became very powerful. Headed by Bali, they attacked Indrapuri, Alakapuri. He challenged Indra for a fight, and in that battle, Bali now defeated Indra. And all the demigods were chased out of the heavenly planets, and they were roaming around like a vagabond, like a bunch of vagabonds, without any shelter, without any home. And seeing their condition, their mother, Aditi, became very much afflicted. So she appealed to the Lord, "My Lord, please do something about my children." So the Lord assured, "Okay, I will come. You perform a brata, observance of vow called Payabrata." So she performed that brata, and as a result of that, the Lord appeared to her as a son, as Vamandev. Bali Maharaj was very generous. So he was performing a sacrifice, and after the sacrifice he was giving in charity to especially all the brahmanas. Whatever a brahmana wanted, Bali Maharaj was ready to give it to him. So at that time, Vamandev came. Small little boy, dwarf. The brahmanas carry an umbrella because they have to keep their head cool. Now it was so small that it looked like the umbrella was moving because he was not visible. But when he came to Bali Maharaj, then Bali Maharaj was struck by his beauty. Such a beautiful child. So Bali Maharaj felt that, let this boy ask for anything, I'm ready to give him that. So when he asked the boy, "My son, my dear Brahmana, what do you want?" And he said, "I just want 3 steps of land." He said, "What? 3 steps of land? You came to Bali, who is famous for his charitable nature. Ask for anything, kingdom, wealth, cows, horses, elephants, wives, anything that you want, I'll give it to you." He says, "No, all I need is 3 steps of land to lie down." To lie down, all we need is just 3 steps of land. So what's the use of asking for anything more? Because in this material nature, what is of any value? So when he declined to take anything else from Bali Maharaj decided to grant it. "Okay, if that is what you want, I'll give it to you." Sukracharya said, "Bali, be careful. This is Hari." By nature, Brahmanas are greedy. And this Brahmana is so renounced, something is wrong. He must have come here to deceive you. So Bali Maharaj said, "If this is Hari, then I'll consider myself too fortunate. I am prepared to give him anything and everything. You are saying that he has come to take everything away from me in the plea of these 3 steps of land. He doesn't have to even ask for that. I am ready to give him everything that I have." So that shows the nature of Bali Maharaj. And that's why Bali Maharaj is a Mahajan. He knew the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knew the result of surrendering unto him. Sukracharya then said, "Bali, don't make that mistake. I am your spiritual master. Please listen to me. The demons will lose everything." So Bali Maharaj said, "No, I gave him my words and I'll stick to my words." So then, to grant the sanction the boon, he had to take water to do achaman. Before taking a vow or before chanting a mantra, one makes the achaman. Without doing the achaman, this act of taking a vow will not be complete. So in order to prevent Bali Maharaj, Sukracharya entered into that water pot and blocked the neck of that water pot so that water won't come out. So Bali Maharaj is trying, what happened? What is not coming out? Then Vamandev said, let's see. He took a kusha grass and poked. And as a result of that, Sukracharya's left eye got blinded. And so screaming, he just came out, and Bali Maharaj offered Vamandev these 3 steps of land. With 1 step, the Lord covered the entire earth. Then with the 2nd step, he covered the entire space, all the way up to the upper planetary system, all the way to the covering of the universe. And then he asked Bali, where shall I put my 3rd step? You promised me that you'll give me 3 steps of land, but now where is the 3rd step? So Bali said, my head. And the Lord placed his lotus foot on his head, and that's how he blessed Bali Maharaj. And he sent him to the lower planetary system, Patalaloka. And at that time, he also gave a benediction to Bali Maharaj, that Bali, since you have complied to my request, I also will reciprocate by becoming your gatekeeper. You will be in the lower planetary system, and I'll be there keeping your gate. So this is how the Lord blessed Bali Maharaj, and so how many questions do you have? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'll give some time for question answers. There are 2 things that I wanted to tell this today. One is Ambarish Maharaj, the episode. Anyway, quickly maybe I can say that. And the other one I was going to say is about Lord Ramchandra. But that won't be possible, because once I start speaking about Ramchandra, it'll take at least half an hour. So Ramchandra's you already know, and if you want to, you can read. Ambarish Maharaj's story, anecdote, is short. I mean, briefly I can describe, but it's very, very relevant for us. Ambarish Maharaj was a great king, and he performed this Ekadasi Brata for 1 year. And now this Ekadasi Brata, fast has to be broken at certain point, certain time. Otherwise the Ekadasi will not be complete. Like you fast and then break fast on the next day at a certain time. So Ambarish Maharaj, when he observed Ekadasi, at that time Durvasha Muni came there with his 64,000 disciples. So Ambarish Maharaj told him, please go take your bath, and then you please come and take your prasad here. So Durvasha went to take his bath with his disciples, and it was taking a long time, and he was not coming back. In the meantime, the time of Paran, the breakfast time, was about to expire. So his priest told that you just take some water, because by taking water you will break the fast, because you are fasting from water. So you take some water, you will break the fast. Yet it is actually, when a guest is in the house, the custom is the landlord, the head of the house, doesn't eat before feeding the guests. That is another Vedic culture. So he said that, so he didn't want to break fast without feeding Durvasha Muni. Now Durvasha Muni, probably you all know, he is famous for his hot temper, and he is famous for cursing. He just gets an opportunity and he curses. So Durvasha Muni, just when Ambarish Maharaj took a little water, Durvasha came there. You ate, you started to eat or drink even before I have eaten anything. Your guest. So I'll kill you. So he took a tuft of his hair and put it on the ground in order to attack Ambarish Maharaj. But as soon as he did that, he saw Sudarshan Chakra coming towards him. Durvasha got afraid and he ran. With his mystic power, he could move faster than the Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan Chakra running as fast as Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan Chakra is chasing him and he is running ahead of Sudarshan Chakra. He went to all different places. He went to Parvati, he went to Lord Shiva, and they all said, look, we can't do anything. We can't do anything. We can't help you from Sudarshan's attack. It's the Lord's own disc. Who can ever prevent it? So then Durvasha Muni went to Vaikuntha planet and told the Lord, my Lord, please save me from your Sudarshan. Lord said, I can't do anything. The offense that you have committed to my devotee, only if he forgives you, then only Sudarshan will stop, not otherwise. So Durvasha then went to Sudarshan, went to Ambarish Maharaj. And when he came to Ambarish Maharaj, Maharaj Ambarish told him, if that is the case, it is for my sake, I didn't take any offense. And then he started to pray to the Sudarshan Chakra. O Sudarshan Chakra, please take all my pious activities. If at all I have any pious activities, take all the pious activities and don't harm this Brahmana. Then Sudarshan stopped. And then the Lord says, see, this is the quality of a devotee. Even though someone commits an offense to such an extent that he wanted to kill him, but when he came and begged forgiveness from him, he is prepared to give all his pious activities in his favor. So did you learn something from this episode? Sure? How many of you think that you learned? Please raise your hand. And if you think that you are going to practice it also yourself, what you learned, then raise both your hands and say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki, Harinam Mahamantra ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So first question from Kanchanabja Das. Dearest Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your divine grace. It is mentioned that Indra is not a pure devotee. However, Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava. Which other demigods are pure devotees of Krishna? The demigods are devotees, but they are called karma mishra bhaktas. They are the devotees with karma, fruitive desire. They are devotees of Krishna to fulfill their fruitive desires. Like they are devotees of Krishna to ask some favor from him. Give me this, give me that. That is the situation of the demigods. Lord Shiva is not a demigod. Lord Shiva is the god of the demigods, Devadi Dev. Janavi Priya Devidasi. Hare Krishna, dearest Guru Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. As your grace told, while churning the ocean, Airavat, Surabhi and Lakshmi came out. But they even survived before the churning Leela, Lord Indra offended his Guru. That time he was sitting on Airavat. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. He lost his... Yeah, so maybe it's a mistake. Not Airavat. Uchchaishrava came. The horse came, not Airavat. Thank you, Janavi. You got it? Well, I don't know. There's a... I mean, as you said, like he was... And I also remembered, like he was actually... he lost the bliss. Then again, Lakshmi left at that time. And he was in Airavat because Durvasha gave him this garland. And Indra put it on Airavat's head. And then Airavat actually took that garland and threw it away. So that's why Durvasha got upset and he cursed that Lakshmi will leave you. Airavat, that's it. I think during the milk ocean I have to see the churning whether Airavat came or not. It came. I see. Okay. So both are correct. Dev. Who is Dev? Okay. Dear Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, kindly help me understand when the Lord is capable of manifesting himself anywhere, anytime, as per his sweet will. Why does the Lord uses Garuda as this preferred transportation system? Is there any specific relevance to it? You see, generally they maintain a certain decorum. That when somebody has to ride on some carrier, so he also selected that he'll have a carrier. Like everybody there has some carrier. Like for example, Brahma has the swan. Lakshmi Devi has owl. Like Indra has his elephant. So similarly, the Lord takes that Garuda as his carrier in order to give him some service. Otherwise, Lord can do anything. But he offers some service opportunities to his devotees. This is Ananta Prem Das. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Why all the holy places and rivers are in India, not in other not in other parts in the world? Why does the Supreme Personality of Godhead incarnates only in India and not in other parts of the world? Sometimes people ask me these questions, but I don't know the answer. Because, you see, certain places have certain characteristics. India is the place, Bharat Varsha is the place which is in the mode of goodness. And in the mode of goodness, the saintly people stay. So the Lord comes to please or protect His devotees, saintly people. And because they are generally used to be in India, that's why He used to come in India. Because this is the holy place. Like one example we can consider in this way, in Delhi, the capital of India, there is an area called Chanakyapuri. And all the embassies are in that area. Right? So similarly, all the abodes of the Lord is in that special place called Haridham. So that is the thing. Mainly because it's in the mode of goodness. But we also must remember that in the age of Kali, everything has become a khichdi. All got mixed up. So India is not the land of mode of goodness anymore. That's why the Lord made arrangement that now let this Krishna consciousness movement spread all over the world, not only in India. And the Lord is manifesting Himself in the form of His name everywhere. And His devotees are not only in India, His devotees are everywhere. Okay, Ananda, Krishna Prem. I think these are the questions you had in the morning. Okay. You once told me that not everyone will become Krishna conscious. So for them, Varnashram system will be there. But I thought Krishna consciousness was for everyone, in every town and every village. It is in every town and every village, but not everybody. You get it? It's spread all over the world. And that's what Prabhupada actually told me. That Varnashram is needed because Krishna conscious, that not that everybody will become a devotee. Those who won't become a devotee, for them we need we need Varnashram to structure them, right? According to their propensity and ability. Answers your point? Does the Guru choose the disciples' ashram and varna in Vedic times and nowadays? Yeah, Guru sometimes used to do that. Like one very nice example is there was I'm trying to remember the name of the Guru. Anyway, I'm just cannot remember. There was once a boy came to this Guru, and Guru asked him, "What is your gotra?" Means, what is your family line? And so he said, "I don't know. Maybe I'll just go and ask my mother." So he went to his mother and asked. So his mother told him that in my youth I was serving many people, and that's how I got you. So I don't really know who is your father. So the boy came and told that to this Guru. So generally it is the Brahmanas who actually accepted as a student for studying the Vedas those days. So he came and he told him that I don't know who my who my father is, what my gotra is, because that's what my mother told me. So he said, the Guru said that since you are so truthful, this is a Brahminical quality. So you are a Brahmana. So he accepted him, and although he didn't have his gotra, the Guru actually gave him his line through his mother. Her mother's name was Jabali, and the boy's name is Satyakam. So he is known as Jabali Satyakam. Alright. So this is how the Guru does taste the quality of her. But nowadays you can't do that. I mean, at least I can say that I can't. Because the temple's request, can you please give him Brahmin initiation? Because our temple needs a pujari and a cook. Now the boy is illiterate, can't even write his own name, and I get request, please give him Brahmin initiation. Like that's the situation. That's why I started this system that for Brahmin initiation one has to have Bhakti Shastri. So that at least, some, in a way to recognize his propensities. Next question. What does our birth caste mean in modern times in ISKCON movement? In ISKCON movement, we all belong to one gotra called Achyuta Gotra. That is Lord's Gotra. So nowadays, American, Europeans, Christians, Jews, Muslims joining ISKCON, and they're accepted from Achyuta Gotra. Alright? So these are you have another question. Why did Pandavas discriminate against Karna when he was obviously a great warrior by skill, if not by birth? I mean, as I said, that those days the consideration of birth was quite important because the Varna's structure was very defined. Like generally in the family of a Kshatriya used to be born. But if he didn't, then he was not recognized as a Kshatriya or a Brahmana. Like for example, Ravan is born in a Brahmana family. But do we recognize him as a Brahmana by birth? No, he is not. This is Parameshwari Radhika Devi Dasi. Dear Gurudev, Dandavat Pranam. What happened to Koti Koti? My question is, why did Lord Shiva hold poison in his neck? Because, although he is Lord Shiva, but generally the poison would affect when it goes to the stomach. So just like that, he didn't allow it to go to the stomach. Although he is Lord Shiva. Anyway, as I said, these are the pastimes. That's why he gets the name Nilakantha. Ramanandini. Okay. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the beautiful and riveting narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam. May I ask what was the purpose of Chitraketu in taking the form of the demon Vritrasura? As I said, it was the curse of Parvati. Parvati cursed him, and that's why he became a demon. Right? Did he take this form only because of being cursed, or was there a further purpose of this position, of these pastimes? Yeah, one activity also unfolds in many other, revealing many other purposes. It happens. Like you can say that, this had to happen to kind of teach Indra a lesson, teach us a lesson on top of everything. Didn't we learn a beautiful lesson from him? That even as a devotee, even if we are cursed, we don't care. Although sometimes we get, of course, but generally in an advanced stage, we don't get affected by that. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So tomorrow morning, what time? Did I hear 10:30? 7 o'clock here. Incidentally, we are building a primary school just next door, across the road. And anyway, the building is not complete, so there is not. But if anybody wants to see, you can tell us, we can show you the school. And the objective is that we are building, this is the primary school, this is the beginning. And after 4 or 5 years, we will need a secondary school. When this primary school children pass out of the primary school, they will have to go to a secondary school. So we are going to build a secondary school in a beautiful piece of land on the bank of a river, which is about 14 kilometers from here. We have about 9 acres of land. So there we are going to build a secondary school. Most likely that will be a boarding school. And then we are also planning to build a college there. And let us see if we can take it that far, and if we can successfully accomplish that, then what should we do? An university. But anyway, the Madhya Pradesh government already approached us with a proposal that they want to join hands with us to build an university. So it may also be possible at that time. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. And what can be a better place than Ujjain, right? For education, the place where Krishna Balaram came to study. And the name of the school is Avanti, Krishna Avanti School. And this Krishna Avanti schools are existing in London already, and we are working on now we are running the 9th Krishna Avanti school in London. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.